Genetic variation, how and why. There are 4 ways that genetic variation occurs: independent assortment of chromosomes, crossing over, random fertilization, and mutations. Independent assortment of chromosomes refers to the random and independent alignment of homologous pairs of chromosomes on the metaphase plate during metaphase 1 of meiosis. Homologous pairs may align with the maternal or paternal chromosome on the metaphase plate. This is completely random, and each homologous pair positions independently of the others. In humans, this process alone creates 2 to the 23rd power combinations of maternal and paternal chromosomes. This is approximately 8.4 million genetically different gametes that could be produced during meiosis. This diagram shows the 4 different gametes that can be made from one sex cell during meiosis. Note that the diagram does not depict all of the human chromosomes. Notice that the maternal and paternal chromosomes appear on either side of the metaphase plate, and their orientation determines the genetic makeup of the daughter cells. In possibility 1, the maternal chromosomes happen to align on the same side of the metaphase plate, creating a daughter cell with only maternal chromosomes. As a result, the daughter cells of the daughter cell contain only maternal chromosomes. However, these chromosomes are not solely maternal due to crossing over. Crossing over refers to the exchange of corresponding sections of genes between 2 non-sister chromatids during early prophase 1. Synapsis occurs when the 2 non-sister chromatids come together and crossing over occurs. A chiasma is the site at which crossing over occurs. This process creates recumbent chromosomes, or chromosomes that have sections of DNA from both parents. Recumbent DNA can also be found in some asexually reproducing organisms. The diagram on the left demonstrates crossing over and its effects on meiosis. Notice how the gametes are recumbent. The diagram on the right displays a closer look at crossing over. The second phase has 1 chiasma, but crossing over usually involves many chiasmata. Remember the distinction between synapsis, a time, and crossing over, an action. These diagrams represent how much crossing over increases genetic variation. Multiple chiasmata in all chromosomes are responsible for the majority of genetic variation and skyrockets the number of genetic possibilities in gametes astronomically. Random fertilization refers to the fact that any sperm can fertilize the egg. This event is random. It is important to note, however, that factors such as swimming speed of the sperm influence which sperm fuses with the egg. Approximately 250 million genetically different sperm cells are released, and the sperm that fertilizes the egg is random. Also, the egg that is released influences the genetic makeup of the zygote. Only one of the 4 daughter cells becomes the egg. The others become polar bodies, except in the case of dizygotic twins. This diagram represents the areas where genetic variation occurs. Independent assortment of chromosomes would occur here. Note that only 4 sperm cells are depicted when in reality about 250 million are released. The genetic possibilities of each gamete are immense, making the genetic possibilities for the zygote even larger. The final method of genetic variation is mutation. Mutations are mistakes in DNA replication and occur very frequently. Mutations that are significant in gametes may either help or harm the success of the organism. According to Charles Darwin's theory of natural selection, those that are helpful increase the reproductive success of an organism. Mutations occur in asexually and sexually reproducing organisms because
everybody makes mistakes. Everybody has those days. Oh, yeah. Everybody knows what I'm talking about. Everybody gets that way. That's right. Everybody makes mistakes.
This diagram shows the different types of mutations. Some would have a larger effect than others. For example, a point mutation would have little to no effect, while a genome duplication would not even produce an organism functional enough to live for a significant amount of time. Genetic variation increases a population's chances at reproductive success. Darwin recognized that a population evolves through the different reproductive successes of individual organisms. Those best adapted to their environment will pass on their genes, thus accumulating favorable traits over time. If a factor threatening the survival of a population arises, genetic variation can allow the population to evolve to adapt to the threat. Traits that were once favorable may become a disadvantage. This diagram depicts how genetic variation and natural selection lead to evolution. Green beetles mutated to produce brown beetles. Since the birds eat green beetles, the brown beetles will have more reproductive success. Their increased fitness will eventually make the entire population brown. This is an example of a population adapting to a change in its environment. Birds that eat green beetles. Without mutations and genetic variation, the species would have never adapted its color to its habitat, and therefore would not have survived. Genetic variation is much higher among sexually reproducing organisms than asexually reproducing organisms. This is one theory as to why sexual reproduction has persisted, considering it is much less efficient than asexual reproduction. Except in the case of monozygotic twins, genetic variation is primarily what makes everybody look different. Family resemblance can be attributed to a similar gene pool. However, it is extremely unlikely that anyone has the same genetic makeup as you.